Joining me on the phone right now, Elize Ryd from Amaranthe. Thanks for joining us, Elize.
Oh, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
It's great to have you. Now, tell us about yourself. When did you start singing? When did you discover that you could sing?
It was actually very early. According to my mom, I was like 3. Because she sang to us every day. It's like my grandmother and her father. Her father was a jazz musician who traveled and toured, actually.
Right.
A touring musician, yeah. And my grandmother was a singer. She was actually my grandfather's choir girl. And then they fell in love, and then my mother was born. So she also was active musically. She wrote her own songs, and she was performing mostly in like folk parks and on radio and stuff in Sweden. But then she got kids when she was 18, and she had to stop her career. Back in the days, it was not like as accepted to be a.
Yeah.
It was hard to get it all together. So she kind of just like, she is quite an entertainer. So she just kind of. So it started very early. I cannot almost remember it. I know they did my like first public performance when I was 4 years old, and my sister had just turned 6. So it was like the two of us singing in church. So I loved, listening to music. It's like everything about my grow up was about music. I never forget when I watched the ABBA live tour from Australia, especially. So it's. I was like, oh my god, I have to go there. This looks it's so cool. So it was a big dream of mine. And then my brother was into the metal scene. He was in the metal scene. He was a growler. He started 2 bands. He was very well known.
Yeah.
And everybody was always talking to me. He showed me, actually, I think he showed me a lot of. It was not a lot of bands, but he showed me as much as he could, like metal bands with females in it. And he also like introduced Arch Enemy to me. He was like, "Look at this girl. Yeah. See, girls can do it too." It's like, "Look at this. She's like a beast." I was like, "Wow." But I was like, maybe my voice is not, fitting for that. But maybe there is another way for me to still be in the metal scene, but where I wouldn't need to change, and that I would be like accepted the way I am, And that's when I started to write songs, and I got to know a lot of people in the metal scene in Gothenburg, because it's very like small, and if you know one, most of them. Like you get in there, you get to know one, and then you just like kind of know people. So I was at first doing a lot of guest appearances on. I think the first album I was ever on was called it's from a band called Falconer.
Yep.
Very Swedish, yeah. And then, of course, I was a guest of. I did the choirs, and I helped Olaf out in the studio. Fredman, which is like a very, it's a well-known old kind of cult studio. And then I also sang on one track with Jake's previous band. And we just kind of thought like it was so much fun to work together, and I kind of didn't want it to stop, So I encouraged them to write songs together, and they thought like it was so much fun to have a female friend joining the songwriting, and we made 3 demos that we put on MySpace, and that became the beginning of Amaranthe.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. So it was very cool.
Now this band Amaranthe, they are out there. They are right out there.
Yes.
With a really unique sound that's very hard to pigeonhole, but that's a good thing. What's your view on that, on where Amaranthe are in this space?
Oh, well, my view of that is great, because there is a lot of bands. I think it has been very good for us to stand out. I mean...
Oh, you stand out, yeah.
No, but it would probably like kind of... We kind of started some kind of buzz on the MySpace, because people were like, have you heard this? Yeah. And then they kind of forwarded the music around, and it became so like, it was so weird. Of course, people, some of them hated it, and but most of them actually liked it. And they were like, wow, this is so cool. Or like, well, what is this? And then people kind of started sending around. So that's how it spread, and it spread very fast. And we got so many plays. And this is what the record labels and managements and stuff were looking at back then. They were not like out in the clubs, but maybe they were as well, but they actually kind of scouted for new bands on these channels. So that's what happened. We got like 3 offers to sign a record deal, and I was like, what? And they haven't heard anything else than these 3 songs, but they were probably just so impressed, and that they kind of, it was such a new sound. So for me and for the rest of the band, we're very like humble when we actually think that it's thanks to that we had such a different sound that we actually got noticed among all these other amazing bands, because there's like so many great musicians and so many cool bands and they're all like, there is so many good, and some people think sometimes like, why doesn't it happen for us? But then I think again, like maybe they have, if they sound too similar to something else which is already out there, it's much more of a bigger concurrence. But we didn't have anybody to conquer with, so we were kind of unique in that sense. So it has always been nice. It's been a nice feeling to know that we don't have anybody else to like kind of follow up on our. We just create something completely different, which for me has been very, very fun.
All right, excellent,
and inspiring.
Right, let's skip forward a few albums because we don't have that much time. Tell us about.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. Tell us about Nils. He's the newest member of the band. Tell us how he came to join and what he brings to the band.
Yeah, sure. He we known about him for many years, because since again, like Sweden is a small country, and the people in your genre, and he's always impressed us a lot with his vocals. And we know that with his previous album release with the Dynasty, he was very inspired by Amaranthe. Olaf reached out to him and actually kind of asked, Sal, did you get inspired by our songwriting? Because it sounds like you kind of have a similar way of writing, or we just like super similar in like the way we write songs, And he was like actually confessing. Then he was like, yeah, I actually love Amaranthe, and you guys are so good, and I had you guys as an inspiration. And we were like, whoa, that's nice. And then since we knew he already liked the sound, and Chris Adam, who toured with us, at first he couldn't make it anymore. He was he was not able to make it on tour, so Olaf just kind of, or if it was Henrik, I don't remember, but they were writing him saying, hey, would you like to join us on a few shows? And he said yes. And then when we had made a whole tour together, we came very close to each other. Like it was a good group of people. He brought like a good energy to the band, and like the dynamics worked very well. So that's when we asked him, like, would you like to join us permanently? And he said yes.
Excellent. Tell us about this new album, the Helix album, which will be coming out shortly. Tell us about this.
Okay, yeah, sure. The Helix, like the way we see it, the actual title of the album is originally from like the one of the DNA. A DNA string is like the Helix. That's right. So that's what we're referring to. I know it has like different meanings, but so we thought, like, what if we actually look back. What have we done from like the first demos we put out on MySpace, and what have happened? Where have we been going in different directions? It has been like a thread, or like a spiral. Yeah. And then we thought, if we find the core in the spiral, like what is Amaranthe? What is like the main or the core in all this? The DNA string or whatever, like the DNA of our band, the sound and what we are. So that's how we got inspired to write this album, because it was extremely fun actually to kind of go back even and think like, how did we, just go through, like, it's been 10 years or 12 years since we started to write the first like songs. But so that's the whole thing, idea about Helix is to kind of, bring everything together in a package. And also, of course, to get more organic, because we thought we had so much like personal emotions and we wanted to express things from a personal perspective. So we focused a lot on that when we wrote the songs. It came very naturally, and it's more heavy than the previous one, but it's also like not more heavy than the first or the second one, or actually massive addictive. It's like we're flirting a lot with like everything we have done in the past and kind of brought everything together.
It's also ridiculously catchy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, that's one of our things as well.
Now, it sounds like you're just having a ridiculous amount of fun. Is that right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. It's so we love to create music. And it's so much fun to just know that, it's such a freedom. It's like we have a very good job in that sense. We have a very awful job in other ways. I mean, in other from other perspectives as well, of course, when it comes to the touring or the bad some circumstances or the pressure and stuff like this. But when you write songs, it's like the best psychologist or like when you go just rinse your soul, you rinse your whole system with everything you feel and how you know what you want to express. So that's the fun part, when you feel like nobody else is telling you what to do, you just do it, and it comes like from the heart, and it makes us feel alive.
Yeah, was the album quick to record? Are you getting your recording process down? Is it getting quicker and quicker every time? Or do you spend just like a really long amount of time in the studio?
We spent 2 months in the studio.
Right.
Before going to the studio, we spent 2 months on writing. And on this album, it's different from the previous albums, but we decided that 2 months, January, February, which happened to be the most dark times. So there is no, outdoor activities or anything. You can just sit inside and don't feel like you're missing out on anything.
Gee, it's winter. We might as well record an album.
Yeah, exactly. Dear is winter. That's exactly what we say and what the Finnish people say. I know that. It was like, so we just took those 2 months and focused 100%. We said if we do 2 songs a week, we're gonna be, well prepared for when we arrive to the studio. And then of course we finished up a little bit also, like lyrically, and a few songs we wrote actually in the studio. But yeah, overall it took us 4 months, which is a very short time compared to the other albums.
Yeah, okay. So that's Helix. That's coming out on 19th of October, according to my records. What happens in the world of Amaranthe when that album comes out?
Oh, we're going to go on a European tour with Powerwolf, which is going to be, of course, very big. A very big band here in Europe. I don't know about Australia. But... and then we're planning. I saw an email from our management, I think 2 days ago, where they said we are planning to try to come to Australia after Japan. And I was like, yes, please.
Well, that's what more bands should do. They should come down here after they tour Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be written in law that they tour Japan and then they come down to Australia.
Exactly, because we've been so many times to Japan, and then when it doesn't make sense that we never came to Australia, it kind of makes me pissed. But hopefully I don't need to be pissed anymore, because now hopefully it's going to happen.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, Elize from Amaranthe, thanks for joining us. You've got a new album, Helix, coming out on 19th of October, very soon. Good luck with that. Congratulations on everything so far, and good luck with the new album. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see you down in Australia very soon.
Oh, yeah, I really hope so. Thank you so much for the chat.